Hello students, today we are going to go through the 10.5 notes where I'm going to go through in detail. I've already assigned assignments to all of you for this particular 10.5 notes, and my objective of this video is to go through the details of the items inside the notes itself. Okay, so to start off, before we actually move on, you need to know that the human circulatory system, consists of a few parts. So let's start off from there, right? The human circulatory system. Basically consists of the heart, the blood vessels, the blood inside the heart, and these are the three main components to the human circulatory system. So how does the whole thing work? In general, it has three main things: the lungs. The lungs is not part of the circulatory system, but it works in conjunction with the heart. Because it's there to supply oxygen. Lungs, heart, and other parts of the body. So most of the time, the teachers, or in fact many students, visualize it this way. So first of all, the lungs will supply the oxygenated blood from the lungs will come to the heart. So when it comes to the heart, it's oxygenated blood. So I'm going to use a lot of color coding to help you to remember. So oxygenated blood. This oxygenated blood is then pumped to the other parts of the body through the heart. When it's pumped to the other parts of the body through the heart, it is circulating through the system already. Then after the other parts of the body has used the oxygen in the blood, they will then allow the blood to flow back into the heart. So the heart will then pump this deoxygenated blood. We call it the deoxygenated blood because there's a lack in oxygen. To the lungs, which will then supply the oxygen again to be pumped into the rest of the body. So the whole system will circulate in this way. So the other things that we need to know, is that as long as the heart pumps out the heart, it has to pass through a certain kind of blood vessel called the artery. So as long as the heart pumps out the blood, it has to pass through the artery. So these two will be the artery. Because the arteries are designed, blood vessels that are designed in such a way that they can withstand high blood pressure. On the other hand, blood that flows back into the heart, we call them the veins. Because veins are specially designed to make the blood go back to the heart because they have a special valve that prevents the blood from flowing backwards. So this allows the blood to flow into the heart without flowing backwards into the rest of the body. So you can see that arteries doesn't necessarily carry just oxygenated blood. There is a artery that actually carries this deoxygenated blood. On the other hand, veins doesn't just necessarily carry deoxygenated blood. there is also veins that carry oxygenated blood. Okay, so with this out of the way, there's also one more kind of blood vessel called the capillaries. Okay, capillaries are blood vessels that are very thin. Okay, how thin are they? They have only one cell thick walls. Okay, so these are the blood vessels that will help to allow the blood to go to the various parts of the body. So it's found in the lungs, in the heart, in the other parts of the body where the organs actually uses the blood, okay, the oxygen in the blood. So it's actually found everywhere. So in terms of thickness, artery will be the thickest, followed by veins, followed by capillaries. Okay, capillaries being the thinnest. Okay, so what I did here was to quickly summarize what you have learned for the human circulatory system. Okay, and also there is not just this information they have learned in chapter 10.5. Okay, you have also learned about the heart itself. Okay, so with that in mind, let's go through the details. Okay, I shall start with question 2. Okay, because question 2 is actually the first assignment that I assigned to you, okay, regarding these parts of the chapter. So I think it's more appropriate that I start off with this so that it's easier for everyone to understand. Okay, so when we look at the heart, okay, currently what you're looking at is actually a mirror view. Okay, the mirror view of your heart, okay, or a person's heart. Okay, so since it's a mirror view, that means if I were to divide, okay, I use a different color, sorry, let me use red. If I were to divide the hearts in this way, okay, this would be the left side and this is the right side. Okay, so the left is over this side, left, the right is over this side, right. Yeah, so with that in mind, okay, so anything that is shown here, okay, is actually a mirror image. So you have to keep that in mind. Otherwise, it'll be very confusing later on. Okay, so let's start off here. Okay, to start off from the top, okay, this is actually a type of artery. Okay, you can see from direction of the arrow, okay, that is coming out of the heart. So again, when blood comes out of the heart, it has to pass through the artery. Okay, and this is also an artery. Okay, some of you who have done a little bit of research, okay, you would know that the medical name, okay, for this particular artery is called aorta artery. Okay, A-O-R-T-A. Oh, sorry, I have an additional E here. Aorta artery. Okay, so it's okay if you don't know the aorta, but at least you must know that it's an artery. Okay, for the second one that is underneath here, okay, the name of this particular artery is the pulmonary artery. Okay, so again, if you don't know the name pulmonary, it's okay. You need to know that it is artery. Okay, on the other hand, this part underneath here is actually the vein. Okay, the vein that that brings the blood into the heart. Okay, again, the medical name for this particular artery is called the pulmonary vein. Okay, honestly speaking, Mr. Lim is also not very sure why they have these names. Okay, I'm not very medically trained in this area. Okay, but at least I know that it's an artery or vein because veins bring blood into the heart. Okay, so on the over here, this first chamber, okay, that we have that I'm drawing out here, this first chamber, okay, is actually the left atrium. Okay, this first chamber is actually the left atrium. Okay, after the blood has passed through the left atrium, you go through the left ventricle. Okay, after passing through the left ventricle, it will then be pumped out of the body, out of the heart, sorry, out of the heart through the aorta artery, okay, to somewhere. Okay, so we leave it at this point first. Okay, on the other hand, on the other side, this top one over here is actually a vein. Okay, it has a very special name called the Vena Cava. Okay, if you don't know Vena Cava, is okay. Okay, some of you even research to the point where you even can tell me it's called the superior Vena Cava. There's no need for that. Thank you very much for doing your research. Okay, this we just keep it as vein. Okay, so from this vein, okay, this right side of the heart, okay, the vein will then pump, will then allow the blood to be entered through the right atrium. Okay, blood will always go through the right atrium first. Blood will always go through the atrium first before going to the ventricle, ventricle. Okay, then after that, you pump out into the artery. Okay, so so far, I think it's quite clear. Okay, in terms of the blood, there is whether it's oxygenated or deoxygenated. On the right side here, okay, if I were to just continue to jump to part B, part 1, okay, this side, okay, the right side is the one that will pump the deoxygenated blood, the right side of the heart. Okay, remember, this is the mirror image. Okay, the right side of the heart will pump deoxygenated blood into the heart itself. Okay, and then it will be pumped to the lungs later on through the pulmonary artery. Okay, do you notice these particular things here? These things, okay, that looks like gates are actually the valves. Okay, that prevents the backflow of blood itself. Okay, same for the other side. Okay, now on the where is this? On the left side, okay, on the left side, this particular part of the heart will pump the oxygenated blood, okay, through it. Okay, after it pump the oxygenated blood through it, it will then be forced, the blood, oxygenated blood will then be forced to the rest of the body through the aorta artery. Okay, now if you notice the center muscle here that is not specified, this is actually the septum, sorry, septum. Okay, it's a very special part of the heart that actually separates the heart into the two halves. Okay, before the valves actually separated into quarters. Okay, so with this, I hope you all remember, okay, what needs to be done. Okay, so let's look at part C. I know this one for the 205 students, you all won't have seen it, yeah, because I never asked you to do, but for those who have actually tried it, okay, you know that this is actually a bit, how to say, not difficult, neither is it easy. It's a little bit of memory work, okay? So if you were to cut PQ, cut a line PQ for the heart and observe from underneath, how will it look like? Okay, so if you look at this part, okay, basically, you're going to cut it this way. Okay, you're going to cut the heart that way. So if you look at the heart that from underneath, okay, we look at the heart from underneath here. Okay, basically the question is asking, if you look at the heart from underneath there, what would you see? Okay, so to prevent confusion for this particular part, let me just remove the eye itself and the line. Okay, so if you have done it, you will know that the answer is actually A. Okay, the heart will look like A. Okay, where the where the left side is a little bit more rounded than the right side a bit sharper. Okay, is this very important? I would say not really. Okay, hearts are asymmetrical. Okay, it's actually, it will boil down to answer of either A or D. Okay, but actually answer here is actually A. Okay, so is it important here? Not that critical, but I would like you all to remember this particular one. Okay, 2A and 2B. Okay, which is more important. Okay, so going back to question 1, okay, which would then be able to explain in a little bit more detail. Now you are looking at the heart itself. Okay, so just now we mentioned that there are veins, there are arteries. Okay, and this is another how to say, another way of displaying the heart. Okay, of drawing the heart. Okay, so let me change it to maybe green. Okay, so again, this is actually the mirror image of the heart. Okay, so what you're looking at is actually the mirror image. Again, let's quickly label the left atrium. Okay, this one would be called the right ventricle. Okay, this one is the right atrium. And this one would be the right ventricle. Okay, do you need to remember the names? Yes, you need to. Okay, so the blood, okay, I'll use blue and red to draw. Okay, the oxygenated blood would be coming from the left, okay, the left atrium. Okay, go through the right ventricle, and then it'll be pumped out of the artery here. Okay, on the other hand, the deoxygenated blood would flow from the right atrium through the right ventricle and then out to the other parts of the heart. So once you are able to identify these portions, then we can actually trace back where this blood is supposed to go. So for deoxygenated blood, you need to get oxygen. So of course, when you have the need to get oxygen, then these particular two will go to the lungs. Okay, these particular two arteries will actually head to the lungs because that's where you get your oxygen. Okay, on the other hand, this part is oxygenated blood that is pumped in through the left atrium. Okay, so this one would be the from the lungs. Okay, so from the lungs, you pump into the left atrium and then go to the right ventricle, and it will head out to the rest of the body. To the rest of body. Okay, why is it this way? Well, think about it this way. Your body needs the oxygenated blood. So the oxygenated blood must come from somewhere. And in our body's case, it definitely comes from the lungs. Okay, so coming back to the right side here, okay, since we have to the rest of the body, then these two must be coming from the rest of the body. Okay, so when it comes from the rest of the body, then that means it is basically deoxygenated blood. Okay, because the body has already used the blood itself. Okay, so if you look at the labels in part 3, to lungs, from lungs to head and body, from head and body, we are almost there. Okay, so instead of using the rest of the body, the term rest of the body, we should just use we should just use from head and body, okay, to complete that particular question itself. Okay, so this is actually the answer. Okay, to head and body. Okay, from head and body. Okay, I have no idea whether the top vein is the one from the head or not, that one I have no idea. Okay, so we just keep it as this. Okay, so with this, we have labeled almost everything. We just need to label now the artery and veins. So again, very quickly, arteries are blood vessels that carry blood from the heart to somewhere else. So it's always from the heart. So with that in mind, the two blood vessels here are actually the arteries. This and this are the arteries. Okay, the blood vessels that carry the blood to the lungs, to the heart, is actually called the vein. So this is the vein, and this is the veins. Okay, so these two are the veins. Okay, so with that, we have answered part A. Okay, so which side of the heart contains blood high in oxygen? Okay, so if you look at the way that we draw the blood flow, okay, you would notice that it's actually the left side of the heart. Okay, the left side of the heart that is actually carrying the oxygenated blood. So explain why, because they carry, or it carries, the blood from lungs. Okay, so this is how Mr. Lim start to remember things, okay, because I also find it difficult to remember all the things at one go. Okay, so what I do is I try to find ways and means to help myself remember the items. Yeah. Okay, so which side of the heart has thicker muscles? What do you think? If you look at the heart itself, which part of the heart, which side of the heart does the blood actually need to flow to more parts? Okay, is it the left side or to the right side? Okay, logically, we would know that it's actually from the left side, because if you look at this portion, okay, your heart has to pump the blood such that it can actually flow to the head, the body, and parts of the body. So there are more places for the blood to go. So that means the left side of the heart must have stronger muscles, okay, so that it can actually allow the blood to flow further, okay, to the other parts of the body. So explain why. Because they need to pump blood to other parts of the body. Okay, and this is further away from the lungs. Okay, and okay, so this is a little bit of thinking skills that you require when you answer questions. Okay, honestly speaking, Mr. Lim is not medically trained, okay, but I do use a little bit of logic to try to understand how the heart actually works. Okay, so if you want, now in this case, if you want the blood to be going to many more places, and all these places are further away from the heart than the lungs are, then that would actually give you indication that yes, your side, this particular side of the heart must be stronger in order for that to happen. Okay, so those are tricks that you can learn along the way. Okay, and I do hope that you pick up all these tricks as you go along. Okay, so now, coming to this question 3, okay, this is actually the part of the question that I asked the 204 students to practice, okay, but it should be at the back of your mind already, because you have learned about artery, vein, and capillary. Okay, so let's go through the artery, then we go through the vein, then we go through the capillary, okay, to get a rough understanding. So in terms, again, if you look at the pictures, in terms of thickness, you notice that the artery has the thickest walls, okay, while the capillary has the thinnest walls. Okay, so what does the artery do? The artery actually carries blood away from the heart. Okay, so because it carries blood away from the heart, it needs to have very strong muscles, right, so that it can actually withstand the high blood pressure. Okay, oxygen level, in terms of oxygen level, even though at the start of the video, you will notice that I actually wrote this, okay, where veins actually do carry oxygenated blood, artery here carries oxygenated blood, but this particular artery actually carries the deoxygenated blood. So in terms of what type of oxygen level does the blood have in this particular case, I would say, or most of the time we would say that it usually carries blood that is high in oxygen. Okay, like we said, it is usually high. Okay, contrastingly, okay, if oxygen is high, then the carbon dioxide is low. So usually low in carbon dioxide. Okay, usually again, okay, because we know that there are parts, or there are arteries that actually carry these opposites, right? So like the artery that carries blood from the heart to the lungs. Okay, so blood pressure is definitely very high. So the wall thickness have to be thick. Okay, lumen. Okay, lumen is basically the hole. Okay, the hole of the artery itself is very narrow to ensure that the high blood pressure is there, okay, so that it can be going further. Okay, so valves, there are no valves here because we don't need to worry about the backflow, right? Okay, for the veins, they carry blood towards the heart. Okay, in terms of oxygen level, usually they are carrying low oxygen level blood. Okay, then for carbon dioxide is usually high. So again, there are veins that carry oxygenated blood. Okay, so that's why I use the word usually, because it's not always true. Not always true. Okay, wall thickness. Okay, the veins have thin walls. Okay, and do they have valves? Yes, they do. Okay, remember the valves are there to prevent backflow of the blood itself. Okay, next one. Okay, from the arteries, from the artery, you will usually go to the capillary first before going to the vein. So what is capillaries? Capillaries are actually the thinnest blood vessels of all. Okay, so they actually carry blood from arteries, okay, to body, to body, maybe I use the word body cells, okay, to complete it, to veins. Okay, so going back here at the start, okay, there's also another part where we talk about blood from the artery goes to the capillary. Then after that, it goes to the veins, and then it goes back to the artery, okay, through the heart. Okay, capillary is to the body parts. Okay, so there is a cycle here. There is a subsidiary of the whole human circulatory system. So this system is actually not simple. It's actually quite complex. Okay, so we need to be very careful when we talk about all these things, right? So for oxygen level, since capillary joins the artery and veins, and since they join, they also will be able to receive the oxygenated blood. Yet at the same time, they are also giving or pushing the deoxygenated blood into the veins. So in terms of oxygen level, how will we classify them? Okay, so if you think about it this way, then we can say that they oxygenated blood will be nearer to the site of the capillary that is nearer to the arteries. Okay, so they are higher near arteries. Okay, and low near the veins. Okay, on the other hand, for the carbon dioxide level, okay, they are higher near veins and lower near arteries. Okay, wall thickness, they are very thin. How thin? They are 1 cell thick, kind of thin. Okay, so they are very, very, very thin. Okay, so do they have valves? No, they do not. Okay, so our body is designed, it's already perfected itself, okay, such that it does all these things. Okay, question 4 here is actually part of the 21st of May assignments, if I'm not wrong. Okay, along with question 2, but I noticed that many of you were very, very confused. You thought that this particular question actually links to the heart itself. Okay, the question 2 questions, right? So it's actually talking about vessels. Okay, so we are talking about blood vessels here. Okay, so which blood vessels has thick muscular walls? Okay, this one will be the artery. Okay, which one has 1 cell thick? Capillary. Okay, plural of artery is arteries. Okay, change the Y into IES. Okay, plural of capillary is capillaries. Okay, but of course, we seldom talk about all multiple. We usually refer them to singular. All right. Okay, usually carry oxygenated blood again is the artery. Okay, usually carries deoxygenated blood, I would say is the veins. Okay, most of the time is veins. Okay, carries blood of very high pressure, definitely the artery. When it carries blood of low pressure, will be the vein. When it contains valves to, oh sorry, before I move on, actually capillaries also would fall under this category, okay, where we talk about blood of low pressure, because the capillary has to ensure that the blood, the oxygenated blood actually flows into the cell. So with that aspect, you cannot have very high pressure, okay, otherwise the blood won't be able to diffuse through the walls of the capillary. Okay, G contains valves to prevent backflow of blood. There's only one blood vessel that contains valve, which is the veins. Okay, and found inside organs and tissues, they must be very, very thin. Okay, so it has to be the capillary. Okay, so I hope this clarifies question 4. Okay, question 5. Explain why arteries have thick walls. Okay, like I say over and over again, the job of the arteries is to allow the blood to flow from the heart to the rest of the body. So these arteries must be able to withstand the high blood pressure. Okay. Okay, so the job of the blood from the heart. Okay, so is there to withstand the high blood pressure. Okay, explain why veins have valves is basically to prevent the backflow of blood. Okay, we don't want the blood to flow backwards. Okay. Okay, we don't want the blood to flow backwards. That means we don't want the blood to flow. Supposedly it's supposed to flow from the feet all the way to the heart. But if it's not successful, it goes backwards. It's going to cause a lot of trouble. Okay, and it actually there is a medical condition for it. Okay, and it's not a nice medical condition. Okay, because it can cause death. Okay, explain why capillaries have one cell thick walls. Okay, so like what I was what I was explaining before, is actually to allow fast and easy diffusion okay of fast and easy diffusion of substances to and from the heart. Okay, so remember the blood itself, even though I say oxygenated blood, the deoxygenated blood, they also do carry other things. Okay, for example, they do carry the nutrients that the body actually need. Okay, so these capillaries, the job of capillaries is actually to allow these nutrients, the oxygen, to be passed from the blood into the cells itself. On the other hand, the waste products of the cells, okay, needs to come out from the cell itself and be carried off somewhere to the other parts of the body to be processed. So this is the part where the capillary actually allow the diffusion to happen from the cell to the blood so that it can be carried away from the area. Okay. So now let's look at question 6. Okay, looking at these two diagrams, okay, P and Q. Q is a bit more ambiguous. So you might not be able to tell there is a vein straight away, but P definitely you should be able to tell by now is actually the artery. Okay, usually for capillaries, okay, if you look at the previous pictures, if you look at capillaries, they will usually tell or draw these dots in the center of the wall, okay, or a few dots at the center of the walls up there to tell people that it's actually one cell thick. Okay, very, very seldom we draw in different way. Okay, so sometimes for veins, they draw it this way. Okay, where they actually show you the vowels. Okay, so this is the side view of the vein itself. Okay, sometimes they draw for you the side view of vein. Okay, in this way. Okay, so Q is actually a vein. Okay, and the side view of vein is what I've shown there to help you to remember that these things are the vowels. Okay, so most of the time we draw in either the two ways that is shown here. Okay, state 2 structural differences. Structural meaning the how it looks like. Okay, so what are the 2 structural differences of veins? Of course, again, what we mentioned, P has thick muscular walls. But Q doesn't. So this is a comparison, and it is the way to tell differences. You don't just tell people that P has thick muscular walls and stop there. Okay, you must tell me a difference. Okay, so there must be a form of comparison. Okay, so the other one will be Q has vowels, but P doesn't. Okay, so these are the 2 structural differences. Okay, so state 2 functional differences between P and Q. Basically, functional meaning how they work. Okay, so P carries blood with high blood pressure. Okay, so this is one functional difference, but Q carries blood with low blood pressure. Okay, so this is the first functional difference. The second would be what's the functional difference between artery and the vein, which should be P usually, or arteries, okay, usually carry blood with high oxygen, but Q usually carries blood with low oxygen. Okay, so again, usually, okay, not exactly all the time, but most of the time. Okay, so finishing that, okay, let's come to 7, where we talk about the blood itself. Each vial of blood has a few things inside. Okay, so inside the lesson itself, okay, I will have shown you all a video or so to explain most of the thing. Okay, so let's start off. Usually I like to start with red blood cells. Okay, so the job of the red blood cell is to transport oxygen. Okay, they do no other things. Okay, they only transport oxygen. Okay, the shape is actually, if you look at the lesson carefully, it's actually biconcave. Okay, it has no nuclei. Okay, so it's a cell that is unique. It doesn't have a nuclei. Okay, and it has hemoglobin. Okay, which is actually the red color that you see. Okay, that's why you call it red blood cell. Okay, white blood cells are actually our defenders of the body. They fight off infection. Okay, by killing the bacteria. And producing antibodies. Okay, so the extension again, white blood cell is not one type of cell. There are many types of white blood cell. Okay, red blood cell on the other hand, there's only one type of red blood cell. Okay, so there are many different types of white blood cells. All of them do different jobs. Okay, so some of them eat the bacteria, some of them produce the antibodies, and so on and so forth. Okay, so many of them have different type of job. Okay, some white blood cells is actually there to just identify, like a burglar alarm, to identify there's a virus or there's a bacteria around, and then they activate other white blood cells to go and attack it. Okay, so usually they are bigger than red blood cells. Okay, so that's how we identify them. Okay, the platelet. Okay, the job of the platelet is actually to clot blood. Okay, if you have watched or if you have seen the lesson, I used this particular show called Cells at Work. The platelets is actually depicted as small little cute children who work together to clot the holes, okay, to clot the blood, okay, so that you don't bleed out to death. Okay, so next one will be the plasma. Plasma is actually, the main job of the plasma is actually to transport digested food, okay, carbon dioxide, okay, waste substances, okay, so plasma is actually carrying everything, okay, other than oxygen, right? They contain mostly water. Okay, so if you look at the way that the blood is split, okay, like in number 8 here, plasma, okay, is forming the majority of the blood. Okay, while in the center here is actually the white blood cell and platelets. Okay, and last but not least, the red color thing would be the red blood cell. Okay, we cannot have too many white blood cell, otherwise it will be called a cancer, okay, leukemia. Okay, so moving on, okay, I think this is the last question. You see this particular question and looking at the information that we have above, you can actually straight away identify that these things here are the red blood cells. Okay, even before I read the questions, I can identify them already. Okay, and this thing here and this thing here, they have nuclei, okay, and they are bigger than the red blood cell. So once you figure these two information out, they are actually the white blood cells. Okay, they come in different shapes, right? So how many white blood cells are there? 1, 2, 3. There are 3 white blood cells. How many red blood cells are there? Okay, the ones that I've identified here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 of them. Okay, is it difficult? No. As long as you know how to look at them, you should be able to answer the question, right? So part C, state 2 differences between the red blood cell and the white blood cells that you can see above. So once you look at it very carefully, you can see that white blood cells are bigger than red blood cells. So there's actually a difference already. Okay, so that's what we can write. White blood cells are bigger than the red blood cells. Okay, what's the difference number 2? White blood cell have nuclei. Okay, but red blood cell don't have. Okay, so this comes with a little bit of memory work, but you also notice that it is actually very easy if you can look at the question and figure out from there. Okay, there's actually there's actually some need to remember some content, but you can figure out some of the answers from here already. Okay, so what are the other possible answers? There are many possible answers. Okay, so another possible answer could be in this particular picture, there are 2 different types of white blood cell, but only 1 type of red blood cell. Okay, as you can see here, this nuclei is circular. Okay, this one looks like a M shape. Okay, so this is 2 different type of white blood cell already. Okay, then you can talk about the shape. Okay, and so on. Okay, so there are a lot of possible answers. Okay, next one, state and explain 2 components of blood that will increase in numbers when there is a wound on the skin. So when there is a wound on the skin, what goes into the body? Okay, the bacteria, the virus, right? So the first one that will increase is actually our white blood cell. Okay, so a little bit of logic here. You must know what does the blood contain. Okay, and you must know what each cell in the blood do. Okay, so white blood cell fights off infection, bacteria, viruses. So when you have a cut, a wound, bacterial viruses is going to enter. So white blood cells definitely need to increase to fight off bacteria. Okay, so to kill bacteria, okay, that may enter the body. Okay, so logical? Yeah. Okay, so bacteria and bacteria are all around us. So the white blood cells are actually there to protect us. Okay, so what is the other one that will increase in number? Okay, I would say the platelets. Why? Why do we need? Why is there an increase in platelets at the wound? Well, what happens when you have a wound? And basically, your body will try to seal up the wound, seal up the hole. Okay, so the platelets are the ones that seal up the hole. So because they want to clot the blood. Okay, so that you don't die of blood loss. Okay, to clot blood. to prevent blood from flowing out of the body. Okay, so we have all these things to protect us, right? So please remember a little bit of all these things, right? So if you look at this particular question, what is it trying to say? The diagram below shows the flow of blood in a blood capillary with the blood cells. Okay, so this is a capillary tube. Okay, so that means it's very thin, right? So let's look at it very carefully. Body cells are here. The waste product is trying to move from here to here and through this particular thing. So P should be the capillary already, the walls of the capillary, because they are one cell thick. Okay. So that's answer for part 1 and part 2. Okay. So is it difficult? No. You just need to know that capillaries are one cell thick. So of course, you look at the arrows to identify where exactly is the capillary. Okay. So which letter P, Q, R, or S shows a red blood cell? So remember, red blood cells are biconcave. They look like donut shapes. So if you look at all the answers there, Q would be the best bet. Okay. Q is actually our best bet. Okay, but you also do notice this funny shape here. Okay, so maybe this one is the side view, and this one, the other shape here. Okay, this one is the top view. Okay, maybe, right? So which letter P, Q, R, S shows a white blood cell? Okay, so of course if you look at P already used, Q is the red blood cell, S seems to point to nowhere, which leaves answer as R, okay, as the most likely one. So this one is by elimination, right? Explain how the following substances are transported to and from the body cells. Okay, so this one is a bit long. Okay, so basically they transfer the substances, oxygen and dissolved food substances are transported by from blood to body cells by the process of diffusion. Okay, so they are actually transported by diffusion. Okay, from the blood to the body cells. Okay, if you are going to look at the full thing, okay, then we have to talk about the concentration. Okay, so so how does diffusion happen, right? So concentration of oxygen and dissolved substances is higher than in blood, is higher than in body cells. So diffusion happens. Okay, and this is actually the second part here. Okay, so similarly for waste products, concentration of waste products are higher in body cells. Higher in body cells than in blood. So the waste products diffuses from body cells to blood. Okay, so there is this diffusion happening. Okay, E is not part of our syllabus because it's for express students, so let's leave it one side. Okay, so basically E is actually talking about sickle cell anemia. Okay, the problem with sickle cell anemia and one shape of it. Yeah. So number 11, okay, starting from the left atrium of the heart, state how the blood flows through the entire body. So if we look back at the first part over here, we talk about the flow of the blood, okay, through the left atrium first. It will go through from left atrium, go to left ventricle will go through the artery go to other parts of the body, and then other parts of the body come back to the right side. Okay, so let's write all that down. Okay, so from the left atrium, okay, you go to the left ventricle, okay, which will then flow to the body organs or other parts of the body. Sorry, organs. Okay, basically the other parts of the body. Then from the other parts of the body, you actually head back to the right atrium first. Always go through the atrium first, then go through the ventricle. Okay, then you go through the artery to the lungs. Okay, the lungs will then reoxygenate the blood again, and then this will go into the left atrium again, and the whole cycles repeat. Okay, so the blood will flow through the arteries if it's leaving by the left or right atrium, left or right ventricle. But if the blood goes into the left atrium or the right atrium, then it's by the veins. Okay, you enter by the veins. Okay, so with this, I finished a quick revision of what we have done. Okay, for this whole chapter, I hope you all have learned all this well. Okay, and I'll see you all in the next semester. Okay, so thank you everyone. Have a nice June holiday, but don't forget to keep yourself safe, right? So thank you everyone. I shall stop recording now.